Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast, Bone Bootcamp with Sarah Purcell. I'm your host, Sarah. This podcast, my newsletter, and all of my programs are designed to help women approach aging with confidence and courage. I'm specifically focused on bone growth promotion and skeleton-safe movements in Bone Bootcamp, the course, and Short and Sweet with Sarah, the membership. In this podcast, I strive to bring you all the most current information on living your best life as you age. Let's get on with today's episode. Hi, and welcome back. Today, I am here with Tammy Bennett, who I've gotten to know over the last few months, and I have a feeling we're going to become fast friends. So, without further ado, please, Tammy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This is going to be a lot of fun. I am a mindset coach, a running coach, and host of the Show Up Society podcast, where I help give tips on how to show up for ourselves so we can show up for our big goals and show up for other people. And one of the things that I do in my coaching is I talk a lot about building and keeping a tiny daily habit. So just a way to break down our big goals into little teeny steps so that they are more achievable.
Right. And I think my listeners will know that's part of why I was so attracted to your coaching.
Yes.
Because we think the same way from
likewise,
that point of view.
Right.
Yeah. And I really am anxious to ask a story that I heard you tell when I think you were on someone else's podcast about that idea of setting a small task, keeping up with it daily, and the impact it can have on your life. You showed it through a gentleman that you worked with.
Yeah, so I love the stories that come out of when I do these tiny daily habits. So I did a workshop for a business in my hometown. And one of the men, everybody went around and told, what their tiny daily habit was going to be. And he chose to text his daughter every day. So his daughter was grown and, lived not in the same town, and they had sort of lost touch. And so that was really important to him to just rebuild that connection. And so we met again, I think 40 days later for a celebration of everybody's habits. And we went around the table to say how it went. And he said, he kept that daily habit. He never missed a day of texting his daughter. And so that was amazing. They rebuilt this whole connection. But the really cool bonus story to this is that he also stopped drinking and he lost 40 pounds. 20 pounds in the 40 days. Just because he wasn't drinking and he wasn't eating to like buffer his feelings of sadness and loneliness from that disconnect with his daughter. And so just by building that one tiny daily habit, it affected so many other areas of his life and his health. And it was just one of my favorite stories from all of this.
It is absolutely my favorite story of yours. And so that little round table that you had, does it typically go that way when you start a coaching project? Let's say someone wants to work with you one-on-one. What would happen? Where would you start?
Yeah, so a lot of my tiny daily habits actually is more of something I do as a workshop. And so I don't do it as much with my one-on-one coaching. It seems to always turn into bigger, deeper issues when I'm working one-on-one.
Okay.
But so for a workshop, it usually goes about 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. It actually takes about 66 days or more to develop. That's like kind of an average to develop a habit. That 30 days to make a habit is actually not correct. It was built on misinterpreting the info. But it doesn't always work when I can meet with people again in that, over a period of 60 days. So we usually meet, we set up the habit, everybody kind of picks it, and we go through all the things like the why and how we're going to set ourselves up for success. And then we meet again at the end to celebrate. And it's amazing how many people keep that daily habit through all of those days.
Yeah. And is there much guide in how to pick the daily habit? To not make it too big, to not make it too difficult?
Yes.
How does that work?
Some of the tips that I give are that it really can be something that we do. I used to say in under 30 minutes, but I've really brought that down now to 10 or even 5. It is amazing what you can do in under 5 minutes a day that can lead to so much progress. So that's the first thing I would say, something that you can do in 5 minutes or less. And
Okay.
then also I say, keep it positive. A lot of people come to my habit workshops thinking that they're going to stop drinking or stop eating ice cream. And I like to build on the positive habit, because when we have
Yeah.
more positive habits, like good things in our lives, the air quote, bad things tend to fall away.
Right.
For instance, I've had someone who loved soda and she wanted to cut out soda. Well, we instead built the habit of drinking water. And she found that when she was really hydrated and had all this water, she didn't crave the soda anymore. And so just focusing on that positive part.
You make such an excellent point. I recently, it was in early December, I made a decision to try to eat more green.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit challenging because my husband hates vegetables.
Okay.
And I had found that over time, I was preparing fewer vegetables, eating fewer vegetables because he was so unenthusiastic. And I realized it's within my power to choose my vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
to choose what I put in my body. And I really want to put more in my body. So I started out with green smoothies, thinking, well, then he doesn't have to smell them cooking. And so I found that that was my one habit. I thought it was going to take me so much longer to prepare it than it does.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is about a 5-6 minute habit. And funny you should mention what comes along with it, because during COVID, we started having a little nightly glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say why doing that, but it just sort of evolved out of drinking these green smoothies, having more water. I still have to get in my kombucha that is homemade that I make. Well, I started having the kombucha when he's having the wine. And so I don't know why, it just started happening that way. So sort of like your gentleman who lost the weight, and I haven't lost weight, but I don't know why it changed. My body feels better. And I can now see that really for me, drinking a glass of wine is probably going to be more of when we get the chance to start going out again.
Right. Right.
Socializing, having a social drink. But it's not on purpose.
Right. Right.
It's
when those healthier,
fascinating.
when the healthier things come in, the other ones just kind of fall away.
Off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite a wake-up call. And I think, I talk to my women about simple, small habits like doing a calf stretch or I do these hip cars or arm cars, which are called controlled articular rotations. It's just a cute name.
Okay.
Like you're going to play with a kid's car. But you're basically bringing your leg or your arm through its full range of motion. And for many of us who are over 50, the arm in particular has a smaller range of motion than it used to.
Right.
And just by practicing it, it really doesn't take more than 5 minutes to do 3 in each direction for each arm. Things change. You can get stronger because you have more mobility. It's
so cool.
It is so cool and such a great gift, because you can really, through a workshop, give people accountability, I assume.
Right. And it's also teaching themselves to be accountable to themselves, because the other really cool kind of hidden benefit of these habits is it's not only just about drinking the water every morning, but it's also in that you're showing up for yourself every day and saying, I am committed to my health, or whatever your goal is for your habit, but I am committed to me. And even though I might not feel thirsty when I first wake up, I'm going to drink this water because I know it's good for me. And this was the goal that I had set for myself. Can you hear that, Sarah?
Yeah, that's okay though.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's my printer and I don't know what it's doing.
That's okay. We just go with the flow, right?
Okay. All right. But yeah, so that's just that hidden benefit of it's not really just about the habit. It's also about teaching ourselves to be accountable to us and to value ourselves and our health and our wellness.
I love that you say that, because of course my work is about wellness, and it's so interesting that we can say self-love and self-care doesn't have to be a pedicure.
Right.
It can be respecting yourself enough to do that one thing, to commit to yourself. So I love the way you wrap that together. I've said to people before, it originated with my kids when they would say, I just don't have the time to do blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not sure if it's that you choose not to make time for blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And maybe
Right.
it was a small chore.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we first start exercising again, and as a running coach what that's like if you haven't been for a long time, that maybe the small goal is to just put on your running clothes.
Yes.
And that just feeling good about because you committed and you followed through. And
yes,
I'm sure you see that a lot. And that your running coaching and your goal setting all sort of goes together.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, I say, such a big part of running is the mental side of it. A lot, sometimes more than the physical side.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I'm not a runner. I have from time to time. I walk with a weighted vest and that. And I weight lift and I do my other exercises. But I do know that sometimes, for instance, my weightlifting, I will be in my second set and just not be in the mood to do my third set. And that's when it's my mindset.
Right. And that's when it becomes really important to show up for ourselves anyway. And listen, there are days, I talk about this a lot in my tiny daily habits. I call them the ugly days, when you might not do that tiny daily habit perfectly. So for instance, one of my tiny daily habits was with art. I'm also an artist. And there would be days when my painting was so ugly that it will never see the light of day. I will never show anybody. But to me, I had that satisfaction of knowing, but I showed up with my paintbrush anyway. And so even for the exercise, maybe there will be days where you are going to do 3 sets and your body is just saying, 2 is good for today. And that's okay because you still showed up for yourself to do the weightlifting. And it might not be the perfect day of the 3 sets that you wanted to do, but you are showing up and you're in the gym with the weights. And so don't put so much pressure on every day to be like the perfect ultimate day.
Such a good comment, because I do also talk to people about listening to their body. So if your habits have to do with exercise or movement, you do have to listen to your body. Now, if your body says every day, I don't want to exercise, that's a different issue.
Right.
But if you wake up and you can feel that you might just hurt yourself, then you know what? Try something else.
Right. And so even for that weightlifting day, if the third set is just feeling so hard, well, then maybe you can walk, or maybe you can stretch those muscles that feel tired and sore. So you can still fill up that time and show up, for your habit and just change how it looks a little bit.
Yeah.
There was one year.
Go ahead.
There was one year where I sprinted for 10 seconds because I wanted to feel that youthful, joyful feeling that kids get on the playground when they're not worried about anything else. They're just having fun and they love to race each other and sprint. So I sprinted every day for 10 seconds and I filmed it. And I put it on Instagram, but I pulled a hamstring muscle. And so I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to continue with this streak? And so I did really cutesy things, like I sprinted with just my arms, or one day I sprinted brushing my teeth. And so I just turned it into, I'm still showing up for my daily habit, but I am also protecting my body and listening to my body and keeping it healthy.
I absolutely love that creativity. Think outside the box. And what does sprinting mean? It doesn't necessarily mean your feet are sprinting.
Right.
Yeah. So brilliant. And I think I could challenge myself to think of, okay, I told everybody weightlifting 3 times a week. What if there's a day when I do have weights in my house, so it's not about going to the gym.
Okay.
But let's say, what if my hand hurts and I really can't, let's say I did something. I would love to challenge myself to say, okay, I'm not going to use my right hand today. What am I going to do? How am I going to meet my weightlifting goal? I don't know right now, but I'm going to take that up as a challenge to sort out by next Tuesday, by Saturday, because that Saturday is when I'm going to lift again.
Yeah,
I'll have
I
some
love
creative idea.
I love that.
Thank you.
And I think it's so good to do that at the beginning too. Like if people are just going to start setting up a tiny daily habit, to have those kind of fallback plans in place, because things do happen, like somebody might get sick and you might have to go visit them in the hospital and you don't have time. So it is part of taking that into account. Like if road bumps come up, how are you going to handle those? And what is kind of your plan B or your backup plan? And like you said, like if your hands hurt, what are you going to do that's still showing up for that habit and that goal, but that's still protecting yourself?
Yeah. Excellent idea. Absolutely excellent. And do people ever ask you for, and I know the workshops are really where that tiny habits comes in. So not the one-on-one, where I know they probably ask you how to chunk down a bigger goal. But do people ever come into the workshop saying, well, I have this big goal and I don't know where to start?
They do. And that's something that we just kind of talk it out in the workshop, because I can't give just like a blanket statement on how to do it, but I
Right,
sort of just define it as like my son used to play with Legos. So I just think of like, what is the smallest building block of that big goal that you could do?
Mm-hmm.
So, I had somebody that wanted to write a book. We literally brought her tiny daily habit down to, she was going to write, she had like this tiny little journal. She was going to write 1 page of that a day. And that's it. And, the thing that's great about tiny daily habits is, that's your minimum. That's like your baseline. And so you'll find that sometimes you go to show up for that goal and you're like, I feel really good. I'm actually going to keep going. And so, if your goal was to walk for 5 minutes, maybe the end of that 5 minutes, you feel amazing. And you're like, you know what? I feel so good. I'm going to go 10 more minutes. And so that's what's amazing. You're not really limiting yourself. You're just giving yourself like the minimum baseline. And she ended up writing that book just because she just took off the pressure of herself. Just 1 page today. That's all I'm doing. Just 1 page today.
Yeah. Yep. And, by that same token, a lot of our listeners are women who are in my Short and Sweet membership. And it's totally open. So I talk about 5 days a week, and each week has a theme. But the openness is that someone could choose, because they're only 5 at max 15-minute videos. Somebody could choose to do all of shoulders week in 1 day. Somebody could choose to do half of day 1 in 1 day. It doesn't really matter. It's exactly what you said. You're showing up, you're pushing play, and you're doing something for yourself. Excellent.
Right. I love that. And I love that you have it available for them to do more if they're feeling good. Right.
And, some people had said to me, well, shouldn't it be on a drip and they have to finish day 1 before they go to day 2? And I didn't want to do that. We're all adults here. And some people may say, well, you know what? Week 2 is not my gig. I don't want to do it. I'm going to do week 3. And I say, have at it.
Right.
Because
I love that.
My plan for them is my plan. There isn't a way to know if I'm right or wrong. And so, we all have our own intuition that we have to trust. And to keep yourself safe and to keep yourself going, sometimes we might say, I'm going to skip that one. You're not going to lose the whole meaning of the program by skipping 1 week.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this sounds like your workshops really can help. How often do you offer them? Or do you offer them online?
I do offer them online, especially now in the times of quarantine and COVID. So I'm planning on doing one in the spring. I try to do it once or twice a year, although I haven't done it in almost 2 years now. And I really miss it because it is just such a fun thing. And it's a great thing to do during quarantine while we're kind of stuck at home, and to still get a lot of something valuable out of our time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if and when the link is available, we'll add it to the show notes, because it may not be available when the show releases, but we can add it in, and also I can do a an Instagram and Facebook post about it.
Oh, great.
I would love
That would be fun.
I would love to maybe participate in it as well.
Yeah.
Because, you always learn something new when you decide to commit to a practice, even if you think you're doing well at taking care of little habits. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not
Right.
delve in and see what comes up?
Right.
So
yeah.
I look forward to you offering that. It sounds like a great opportunity for everybody. And how else will people see and hear your work?
So I have my own podcast, the Show Up Society podcast, and I give a lot of these tips in that podcast too. And that gives you kind of a flavor of how I operate and how I coach and how I see the world. And then Instagram is a great place to find me too. And that's at Show Up Society as well.
Okay. That sounds great. I think we'll put all that in the show notes and make sure that everybody can take advantage of your wisdom, because it just comes out simple and not so difficult.
Right. And that's just what we have to do for ourselves. We have to realize, like, this can be easy. This can be easy and doable and fun. There is something fun about keeping that streak going and never breaking it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love the way you call it a streak.
Yeah.
It's a winning streak.
Yes. Right. Jerry Seinfeld had this famous talk about how, to his advice to comedians that were coming up. And he said, like, you just have to write jokes every day or practice your craft every day. And so he had this thing, don't break the chain. And he had a calendar and he would do a red mark on every day that he, practiced his craft. And I forgot what it was, but he got to a point where it was like in the hundreds and he just didn't want to miss a day. So there is something about that us humans kind of love to have that. Sometimes
when we track a habit, it helps us stick to it.
Yes. That's also one of the things I teach. We get better at what we track, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So true. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me. I think that the golden nuggets in this podcast, I keep it short, just like short and sweet, but there's a lot that was learned in this podcast. So
good. I hope so.
I can't wait to continue to see all your golden nuggets. I love your podcast and I look forward to your workshop.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Bone Bootcamp podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're loving the podcast, please subscribe. Also, share with a friend. I would really appreciate it. And if you're inspired, a really helpful thing to do is leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. Thank you again for joining me. See you in the next episode.